looking at how the pandemic is affecting diverse communities economically and medically. And this morning, we're focusing on disparities, in particular in healthcare. As coronavirus cases spike in much of the country, rates of infection, hospitalizations, and deaths are higher for minorities. Black Americans make up 13% of the U.S. population, but account for 23% of coronavirus deaths. Dr. John LaPook takes us to Minneapolis to show what is behind these statistics.
I was trying to practice social distancing, and he wasn't really understanding it. And I said to him that he needed to understand that this disease hits Black people a lot harder than it hits white people.
Well, what do we have here? So, I've been back and forth about whether to put this out. I wanted to let the situation develop, but I had a hunch. That this is what was going on. So, we've all seen the headlines that COVID-19 is racist. COVID-19, the way that it's put out, you would think that COVID-19 is walking around in like a little Klan uniform or something, and COVID-19 is targeting Black people and targeting brown people. But this video, the title of it is obviously a little bit clickbait. You gotta clickbait here on YouTube, but the reason why I'm not satisfied with the response to this pandemic is because it came in the middle of a political season where people are trying to pander to their voters, essentially. So we can't even tell the truth. We can't even tell the truth about what's going on with this pandemic. And the truth is not that, and I'm not saying that the truth is that, the virus isn't real or that it's not a serious virus. The truth is that the people that are dying from this are either old or they're already unhealthy. So let's go ahead and go through this series of articles. Hit the thumbs up button if you guys enjoy this type of content. If you guys don't enjoy this type of content, then well, I'm sorry. Some people are going to dislike this video, and some people just get offended by things that are true. So anyways, let's just go ahead and dive into this. So obesity worsens outcomes for COVID-19. Adults with excess weight are at greater risk for the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think I need to go through these item by item. So having obesity increases the severe illness from COVID-19. People who are overweight may be at increased risk. Having obesity may triple the risk of hospitalization due to COVID-19. Obesity is linked to impaired immune function. Obesity decreases lung capacity, which we saw that with the ventilators, and reserve, and can make ventilation more difficult. As BMI increases, COVID-19 death risk increases. Studies have demonstrated that obesity may be linked to lower vaccine responses for numerous diseases, such as influenza, hepatitis B, and tetanus. So we get the question, why are certain races dying at a higher rate? Why is the U.S. dying at a higher rate? Which it's interesting that we are one of the fattest countries out there. Besides some of the Pacific Island countries, we are one of the fattest countries out there. But what are we talking about during our political season? We're talking about wealth inequality. What are we really talking about here? Like, we are in the 1% of the world. So what are we doing talking about wealth inequality? There's wealth inequality between the U.S. and other countries, and there's a reason for that. It's called capitalism. It seems like we spent a lot of time talking about this white man who's killing Black people, but we did not talk about this white man who's actually killing Black people, because one story is 100% true and the other one is questionable at best. Before some of you guys leave the video, because I look at my analytics, some of you guys leave early, I do want to at least give you guys something, let you guys get something out of this video. And let's take a look at this question that I got. For those of you guys that don't know out there, I'm actually in the healthcare profession, so we actually have known this for a long time. So this question says, the personal protective equipment shown in this photo can provide effective protection against respirable airborne pathogens such as tuberculosis, which can be inhaled and cause lung infections. I said false. That was correct, right? So the reason why that is false is because these masks, these surgical masks, they can provide protection from splatter. They can provide protection from blood splatter, but they cannot provide protection from viruses. So just so you guys know out there, if you're wearing a cloth mask, if you're wearing a surgical mask, if you're not wearing a respirator, you are not protected. I just wanted to make sure that I put this in because I think it's important that people know that. So on that note, if you see somebody who's not wearing a mask and you are not wearing a respirator, neither one of you are protected. So just calm down out there, people. Calm down. But anyways, moving down here. Obesity disproportionately impacts racial and ethnic minority groups. So it's weird how they use the passive voice here. Like, impacts. Like obesity just, I don't know, it's like you're sitting at a stoplight and then it's just like boom, and you look back and obesity's just right there. That's not how obesity works. You have to eat yourself into obesity. Yeah, obesity has a lot to do with the types of foods that you eat, the amount that you exercise, and your priorities, which Michelle Obama was trying to get after that, but then, you know, the Midwest didn't like that. So here's an interesting one. Remove barriers to health. So what do you mean? Like open up the parks and the gyms? Is that what you mean? No? Okay. Let's go to the next one. Top 10 leading causes of death. So as you can see here, heart disease, cancer, accidents, chronic lower respiratory diseases, stroke, Alzheimer's, diabetes, influenza, nephritis, intentional self-harm. So besides indirectly, intentional self-harm, accidents, and lower respiratory diseases. Lower respiratory diseases is still linked to lifestyle choices in the form of smoking, but accidents and intentional self-harm are the only of the 10 U.S. top 10 leading causes of death that are not impacted by how much you're eating, what you're eating, by obesity. So unless you get in an accident or you kill yourself, what you eat and your health in general is the biggest cause of death in the U.S. Always has been, always will be, and even during this pandemic, it still is. Okay, overweight, obesity. This is from the CDC themselves. So high BMI can increase risk for flu complications. So in other words, what they're saying is that even if this is the flu, which we're going into flu season, if you have a high BMI, you're just more at risk for dying. So we can go back, look, that's on there. So we can even make that, unless you kill yourself or unless you have an accident, you're basically, all 10 of these have to do with your BMI and your weight. So we're getting to the point here. Let's go into the next one. So COVID-19 deaths per 100,000 people through November 10th. What do we see? We see white people 61.7. We see that Asian people have the lowest at 47.6. We see that black people have the highest, 114.3. Indigenous people, 108.3. And we got some other categories down here. We'll go through those. Pacific Islander, Latino, 78.5. I already said that one. And overall, it's 70.8. So what we see is white and Asian is lower. We see Pacific Islanders higher, Latinos higher, black is the highest, and indigenous is right behind them. So that should tell you a little something, but we're going to go ahead and get into this. This is the racial breakdown of obesity, and I've seen a lot of different numbers on this, but the trend is generally the same. We see that black is the highest. We see that right behind them is Hispanic. They did not have indigenous peoples in here. White is right behind Hispanic, and Asian is the lowest. So basically what I wanted to communicate with this is that the diet matters, the exercise matters. Closing down the parks and the gyms does not make sense because of what people are actually dying from, which is the obesity and the problems that we were already facing before this pandemic. So obviously, to close out this video, the obvious question is, so Casey, what do we do to solve the obesity pandemic? There's actually a good book about that. It's called The China Study. If you guys get a chance, go out and read that, and it encourages you to at least decrease animal protein consumption, even if you keep it 10 to 15% of your total intake. That's a huge improvement. If we look at a graph of BMI for based on weights, if you look at the vegan graph, that is the only one that throughout the ages stays in the healthy range. And I'm not even saying that you have to do that. What you could do, have your burger, even though I prefer you to not, but have your burger, but then eat fruits and vegetables for the rest of the day. So anyways, hopefully you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Everybody who got offended by this, I'm sorry that you're offended by things that are true, and I'll see you guys in the next video.